the first thing is first, it seems that we have a new faction on our hands. The authors of Pain, along with Paul Ellering, have returned to WWE TV. And they are joining up with Karrion Kross and Scarlett. They made their official union official when they had attacked Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits, which then led to a very, very interesting backstage segment between Bobby Lashley, the Street Profits, and B-Fab, which is on their digital platforms. But I kind of wanted to know your opinion on this newly formed faction. How do you feel about it? Tell me, lay it on me, sis. Tell me how you feel about this new faction.
Okay, so one thing I just wanted to note is that I noticed that, like, since Triple H has been in more control, there's been like a heavy focus on factions. And I actually like love it because if you know how to book a faction correctly, there's multiple storylines you could have, not just against other factions, but, tell stories within the faction itself, in case one of them may butt heads, kind of similar to like what we saw with like the Bloodline. So I'm a little bit excited because like there's so much you could do and play around with when you build a faction. So that was my first thought when I saw that they bought out AOP. Secondly, how I feel about AOP. I actually really like their work in NXT.
Yes.
I love their work. They were booked way better, obviously, NXT than their short time. I think they were on Raw, if I'm not mistaken. And they just had like really, really, really shitty booking. I forgot who they were aligned with or who they were against. They would have been the New Day or something, but they just had them like doing toiletry jokes. Like they ruined them on the way out. And then they went away, and I think it was good that they went away for this long because like how do you recover from that? Like they have like a great look, and they really could survive on their own with the manager because it definitely worked over in NXT. But they look very good visually next to Karrion Kross and Scarlett, and I was a little bit surprised because I'm not a huge Karrion Kross fan. I love me some Scarlett Bordeaux. I've been saying on Twitter that I wish that she could just go into the women's division, and just give us a diva-ist feel because she could wrestle and she could talk. However, I kind of like the idea that they got a big man faction, and that Karrion Kross may have something else to bounce off of because he's not very good on his own. But that's the beautiful thing about factions. Like when you kind of come together, everyone could bounce off of each other's light. The only thing I was a little bit confused about is that they have a manager and Scarlett's a manager. So does that mean we have two managers? How does that work? And is that like something new that WWE has done? That was my next question. Go ahead.
I was going to say, okay, that's interesting because I didn't even think about that. But I think they could deal with two managers because you have one specifically for the tag team and then you have one specifically for Karrion Kross. Like, I think that's the biggest takeaway is that it feels like two entities coming together as opposed to a person and a tag team coming together. Because with the Authors of Pain, you have Paul Ellering. With Karrion Kross, you have Scarlett. And if the B-Fab tease with Street Profits and Bobby Lashley was an indicator of anything, maybe B-Fab gets into wrestling and then that leads to B-Fab versus Scarlett. In which case, Paul Ellering could be her manager. You know what I mean? Or maybe she doesn't even need a manager. But because there's so many pieces, there's so much flexibility that you can have with all these things coming together. As far as like the whole idea of like them coming together, I actually 100% agree with you. Like the factions and the use of factions are just great. Like I feel like the more factions you have, the better. I feel like it gives more people TV time. I feel like it creates new storylines, whether it's faction versus faction, factions having tensions within the faction. And on top of that, I feel like the diversity of factions in WWE is the best it's ever been because you have, obviously, the Bloodline is still technically alive, but then you also have the Judgment Day. Now you have Karrion Kross and AOP along with Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. So you have a good mix. And we're not even talking about what's going down in NXT, but I just think that there's such a good mix of factions, and I feel like this just kind of adds to whatever is going on. We're not even talking about like LWO and the Legado. because now that's two different things. So there's a bunch of different factions, and I feel like it's just a really good way of keeping people on screen. Like, I think that Karrion Kross has world champion potential. I feel like he can be a world champion. He has a great look. I feel like he has great presentation, and I feel like with the faction, I feel like he has the capability of putting forth a package visually that's very main event worthy. Now, I haven't really fancied myself on being a Karrion Kross wrestling fan. So I guess the in-ring work is just going to have to progress on its own. But, we'll see what happens. But I actually really, really like this idea. And I like the fact that Hunter is including more factions into the programming. But I'm not going to get super, super deep into it. But yeah, let us know how you feel about, let me ask the question. So apparently WWE filed a trademark called Final Testament. And it seems like that is going to be the name for this new faction. So Authors of Pain, Karrion Kross, Scarlett, Ellering, the Final Testament. Is it a yay? Is it a nay?
That's a dope ass name. What? I'm with it. Now I'm extra hyped for this.
I like the name. I really, really like the name. And I think it fits because it's like Authors of Pain, Karrion Kross, and the TikTok. I feel like it's very like biblical. And it's like very biblically dark. So I think it's tough. I like it a lot.
That was a good call. That Triple H had to have been all over that.
Yeah, Hunter was definitely on that. Hunter's the GOAT. But let us know how you feel about, maybe it is called, maybe it is not, the Final Testament as a faction. Put your comments below. Keep us in tune as far as how you feel about that. But we're going to be moving on to the next topic,